My name is Arlette, and I'm 29 years old. The smell of roasted turkey still makes my jaw tighten, because that was the night my brother stood up at Thanksgiving, lifted his wine glass, and announced that our parents had secretly given him the company I built, and that I was getting nothing. It was warm in my parents' dining room, too warm. The windows fogged slightly from the oven heat and 12 bodies breathing in the same space. The long oak table, the same one where I used to spread out invoices and contracts when I was trying to save the business during its first year, was dressed in cream linen and gold napkin rings. My father carved the turkey with that slow, ceremonial precision he always used. My mother kept adjusting the candles like the right lighting could make us look like a perfect family. I should have known something was off. My brother Daniel had arrived late, confident, smiling too much. He kissed Mom on the cheek like a politician at a fundraiser. He shook Dad's hand. He barely looked at me. I remember noticing that. He barely looked at me. But I told myself I was overthinking it. I'd been working 70-hour weeks preparing for a major expansion of the company. Maybe I was just tired. The company. God. I started it at 24. I built it from my tiny apartment kitchen table. I pitched clients between freelance shifts. I signed the first lease. I hired the first employee. I covered payroll when revenue dipped. My parents invested early, yes, but I ran it. I grew it. I carried it. It was my name on the line. And that's why the repeated line keeps echoing in my head even now. You built this because we believed in you. That's what they always said. We believed in you. Dinner started like every other Thanksgiving, polite, slightly stiff, my Aunt Teresa asking about sales projections, my uncle chewing too loudly, the soft clink of forks on china. Then Daniel stood up. He didn't cap his glass, he didn't clear his throat, he just stood, slowly, like he rehearsed it, and suddenly the room went quiet. I think, he said, smiling, this is the perfect time to share some exciting family news. I remember the way my fork paused halfway to my mouth. My mother froze, but not surprised, frozen like she was bracing. Daniel looked directly at me. Mom and Dad have decided to step back from the company, he continued, and they've officially transferred ownership to me. Silence. Not the comfortable kind. The kind that hums in your ears. I felt heat crawl up my neck. My hands went cold. He kept smiling. They wanted someone with long-term strategic vision, he added lightly, and since I've been consulting behind the scenes, I heard a fork drop. Aunt Teresa. My father stared at his plate. My mother wouldn't look at me. And that's when I understood. This wasn't spontaneous. This was planned. And they thought I didn't know. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe. Daniel lifted his glass higher. To new leadership, he said. A couple of awkward claps. My uncle, one of the cousins who didn't understand what was happening. My heartbeat slowed instead of sped up. That's the strange thing about betrayal. When you see it coming, it doesn't explode. It crystallizes. Daniel sat down, leaned back, and crossed his arms. Victorious. Then he looked at me with that faint, almost sympathetic smile. You didn't know? He asked gently. Publicly. He wanted me small, shocked, emotional, humiliated. I set my fork down carefully. The porcelain made a soft click against the plate. I knew you'd try something, I said calmly. His smile flickered. Mom shifted in her seat. Arlette, honey. I raised a hand, not aggressively, just enough. The room held its breath. Daniel chuckled. Try something. It's done. Papers are signed. He leaned forward. You've done great work, but this is bigger than you. There it was. The dismissal. The erasure. For a moment, I looked around the table. Aunt Teresa wouldn't meet my eyes. My cousin stared at Daniel like he was watching a show. My father's jaw was tight, but silent. I felt the weight of every late night, every risk, every time I defended the company when people doubted it, and I heard that repeated line again in my head. You built this because we believed in you. I stood up, slowly. My chair legs scraped the floor, loud in the silence. Daniel stayed seated, confident, certain he'd already won. I reached into my bag, the same leather work bag I bring to every family dinner because I'm usually coming from the office, and pulled out a thin folder. My brother's smile thinned. "You really want to do this here?" he asked. I tilted my head slightly. "Should I tell them?" I said softly, "or do you want to?" The energy in the room shifted. Mom's face drained of color. Dad looked up for the first time. Daniel's fingers tightened around his wineglass. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said, but his voice had changed. I opened the folder. I found out 3 weeks ago when our attorney accidentally copied me on a revised shareholder agreement. Aunt Teresa inhaled sharply. I didn't say anything because I wanted to see how far this would go. I placed the first document on the table and slid it toward my father. "Page 4, I said calmly. "Clause 8.3. Daniel shifted in his seat. Dad adjusted his glasses with shaking hands. I watched his eyes move, and then stop. "Read it out loud," I said gently. Dad swallowed. "It says, transfer of majority shares is contingent upon unanimous board approval." Silence. I nodded. "And who sits on the board?" I asked. Daniel opened his mouth. I answered for him. "Me, you, and Mom." My mother's hands trembled in her lap. "I never signed," I said. Daniel stood up now. "That's technical, it's procedural." "It's legal," I interrupted quietly. Short, clear, legal. I pulled out a second document. "And here's the email from the attorney," I continued, "confirming that without my signature, the transfer is invalid." The room felt different now. Not tense, awake. My cousin leaned forward. Aunt Teresa finally looked at me. Daniel's confidence cracked at the edges. "You're being dramatic," he snapped. "Mom and Dad agreed." "I know they did," I said, under pressure. My mother's eyes filled. "Daniel told them I was planning to push them out," I continued, "that I was restructuring ownership to dilute their shares." Gasps, soft, sharp. "That wasn't true," I said, "and I have the recorded meeting where you suggested it." Daniel went pale. "You recorded me?" he whispered. I held his gaze. "Yes. Because I suspected. Because I prepared. Because I knew. That's the thing about betrayal. It rarely comes out of nowhere." "You ambushed me tonight," I said evenly. "You wanted me blindsided." I paused. "But I don't build things without protecting them." My father stood up slowly. "Daniel," he said, voice low, "is this true?" Daniel looked around the table. No one was smiling now. No one was clapping. The room had shifted. He opened his mouth. Closed it. "It was for the good of the company," he said weakly. And that's when Aunt Teresa, neutral, practical, always detached Aunt Teresa, spoke. "She built that company," she said. "We all know that." The words landed heavy. Simple. True. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. "This isn't over," he muttered. "It actually is," I replied calmly. I slid one final document across the table. "Because after I received that email 3 weeks ago, I exercised my majority voting rights and restructured the shares." Daniel stared. "You what?" "I bought out your advisory stake," I said. "It was small, but it's gone now." His face drained of color. "And Mom and Dad's shares?" he demanded. "They remain intact, as originally agreed. Protected." My father sat down heavily. My mother started crying softly. Daniel looked around the table, searching for an ally. There wasn't one. The room had chosen, not because I yelled, not because I humiliated him, but because I had proof. Because I was calm. Because I was prepared. He grabbed his jacket. "This is unbelievable," he said. "No," I replied quietly. "This is accountability." He left. The door closed. The house felt bigger somehow. Quieter. My father looked at me across the table, really looked at me, for the first time that night. "I'm sorry," he said. And I believed him. Dinner didn't recover after that. It couldn't. But something else did. Respect. Not loud, not dramatic, but real.
Later that night, as I stood alone in the kitchen packing leftovers into foil containers, my mother came beside me. "You built this because we believed in you," she whispered. I looked at her gently. "No," I said. "I built it because I believed in me." And that's the lesson. Sometimes the people who clap for you are the same ones who will try to rewrite your story. Sometimes betrayal wears a familiar face. But preparation is power. Silence is strategy. And self-respect? That's non-negotiable.